Hey guys, back with another update on the Crispy Spider. Hoping to run this thing next weekend at our Goat Hill Adventure Challenge. So, I've got a little bit of work that I want to try and get done as fast as I can to make this thing drivable. It's not going to be totally finished by then because there is still some fabrication that needs to be done as far as winch mounts and then just all of the details. But it will be nice to get a shakedown run on this truck before finalizing all of the details. That way, if anything does need to be changed, I'll have the opportunity to take care of that before I do that final prep and install of all the components. What I did work on over this last week, though, is the front end. I told you that I needed to cut off the front of that chassis to make room for that large, high-tech 7990 servo, as well as just the overall design of this pure Spider axle. It caused that servo to get in the way of that chassis. So when I cut those rails off, I had to figure out a way to get everything back up to the front to give this truck a bumper, basically. Now, you could technically probably run it without a bumper and just rely on the body, but not really something that I would personally like to do all that much. And in the end, I did figure out something. Now, you can see here with the body on, this is just the Yeti body I pulled off my regular RTR Yeti that I've had for a long time. I still have the clear body here that will get Brett's wrap. But you can see here that I came up with kind of a similar bumper to what you may see on an IFS truck or something like that. It follows the lines of the front of that bumper and it kind of comes down with a short skid plate. Now, these pure Spider axles have a skid plate on the front of them as well. Now, what I did was I tried to transition the front of this bumper and skid plate right down into what will be the transition of that bumper. Now, at ride height, there will be a gap there. It does leave the opportunity for a rock or something to get caught in there, and that's not my favorite part about this particular design, but I do think that likely it won't be a big deal, and I think that just the increased clearance of this axle already shouldn't be that big of a deal. We'll see how it goes. There's already a lot of hang points similar to that on a regular axle and steering setup with just your tie rod as you would basically have it. So I think that in the end, I'm just looking at things a little bit too closely, and I'm just going to run it. Now, I will plate the front of this bumper between this upper and lower bar to make sure that I don't have just that, immediate hang point no matter what. So we'll add probably some 24 gauge steel on there, and I'll get that all welded in place, get it smoothed up, and that will look nice and smooth once it's all primered and painted. But let's pull this body off and I'll show you up close, up front, what I did to make this thing clear all of the needed components. What we have is I basically came up with one piece of rod that stuck into the end of the chassis here. As soon as it came out from the end where I had previously cut it off, it bends out at about a 30-degree angle. From there, it goes forward to just beyond the front of that servo where it kicks back to run parallel with the chassis rails. Now, what that did is that gave it enough clearance to clear where through that servo and servo ears mount to this axle. So now under complete chassis flex and articulation, everything clears, and just barely. Now, like I was mentioning up front, I've got the front of the bumper and then I've got that skid plate on the axle. Now, something else that I had to make sure that I had room for was articulation of that to make sure that it cleared that axle. So, at full bump, this axle will come way up into the chassis. That was the whole point of the design of this chassis. And right now, everything clears with about a 1/4 inch of clearance in between the lower bar and the front of that axle skid plate. So overall, I think we're looking pretty good up there. Now, that bar that I welded into the end of the chassis, I braced up from the shock tower down onto that lower bar. And then I braced the lower bar of the bumper up to that rod as well. Now, the only thing that I didn't like about this design exactly was the fact that I couldn't match up where this bar that braced to the shock towers met with this bar that braced from the lower bumper mount. And the reason that I couldn't do that is because where that Yeti body comes down, it starts to come in and a rod comes and lays right in that intersection point. I didn't want to bring this rod back any further because that servo arm and steering linkage can really get right up into that area at full articulation when you're steering completely one way or the other. So that was the reasoning that I couldn't do that. I also couldn't bring this any forward because, again, that's where that bar hit. So there is about that 1/4 inch of only single supported tube there. I think that it will probably be all right, but in the end, it's all I could do. Right now, the only other option that I think that I may have is to double laminate that lower bar. Like I said, having the opportunity to shakedown run this car at Goat Hill before finalizing everything, I think should be a really good opportunity. So taking that opportunity, I'm probably going to be extra hard on this car. One, because I want to test it, and two, because it's been a challenging build to this point, and I need to take out my aggression on it, I think. But so I think that all of the parts that are in this truck can take it. Now I just have to finish it and make sure that all of that is actually the case. Just a quick update on this build. That front end was something that I was stressed out a little bit about, trying to figure out how I was going to get everything to clear. Turns out that a solid night's worth of work, and I was able to get everything done, and I'm actually pretty happy with it in general. The only thing I have left to do is button up that front with a piece of steel over the front of it just to make sure it all is nice and smooth, and then finish up some of the details of this car so that I can have it ready to run next weekend, hopefully. We'll see exactly how that all pans out because there is still a good amount of work to do to get it to that point. That's all I got for this one this week, guys. Hopefully we'll see more by the end of next week or slightly after that, just after I finally catch my breath and can show you guys what we did and how it did, hopefully. But that's all for now, guys. We'll see you on the next one.